Time for another do's and don'ts video. Do you like my theme song that I just wrote? I don't know. I don't even know why I did that. Sometimes I really can't help myself, and this is totally unrelated to this video, but I just, I have to sing things. It just flows out of me. It's like, my best friend calls it musical theater vomit. It's true. I'm gonna play with this slime to keep myself from being totally obnoxious. Probably still totally obnoxious, but so this is from OK Fun Slime. In case you want to know, it's Sprinkle of Fun and it's phenomenal, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're not here to make yet another video about OK Fun Slime because I've made more than enough videos about her slimes. We are here to talk about the do's and don'ts of selling at a slime convention. This convention sellers preparatory do's and don'ts is not something that I really ever planned to do. I actually didn't plan to do more than just the one etiquette video, but a lot of you asked me to do this sellers do's and don'ts. I was kind of surprised that you guys asked me to do it, and then I kind of thought about it for a minute and I said, you know, it's probably because you know that I've done so many conventions at this point and that I might have some knowledge on what works, what doesn't work, so on and so forth. So we're just gonna go ahead and do it. I want to go ahead and put a disclaimer out there, as I always do. I am not the definitive answer on any of these things. This is just my personal opinion on it. This works for me. It may not work for you. It may not work for other people. You might get different information elsewhere. That's great. I'm also, once again, not sure if anyone else has already done this. If they have, not trying to copy anyone. I was just asked to do this. I'm gonna go ahead and do it, and we're gonna hope for the best. I'm doing this off the cuff, so let's hope that I have good ideas and that I remember what I do before conventions. It's gonna get really awkward if I don't. Well, we're just gonna jump in and do it. So there's, of course, the obvious things that you need to do to be a seller at a convention. You either need to be invited or you need to apply. Both are great options. I've done both. So once you apply, the first thing that I would say is that don't really do anything until you know for sure that you've been accepted to that event. Like, it's exciting to apply, but don't get too excited and don't start preparing until you know for sure that there is a spot available for you at that event. And I don't mean that to be negative or to say that you're not worthy of an event or that you shouldn't be at an event. Of course you are, and it would be lovely if we could all go to every event, but of course that's not possible. Rooms have limited, you know, fire codes in space, and they can only have a certain amount of sellers. And that's actually for our benefit as sellers. As a seller, I actually believe that less sellers at an event is better for us. It's a lot of fun for ticket holders to see 8 million sellers, but if you're going to be selling at an event and you're trying to pick between events, I think events where there are less sellers going are actually better. So it's my personal opinion. Someone else might think differently, but I think that it's better to go to ones that have less sellers in proportion to the ticket holders. I'm not saying like if there's two, well, actually I've done one which is 2 sellers before and it was great. So yeah, less sellers was great. Off the cuff is so good. Just gonna turn this off now. So after you've been accepted, what do you do? The very first thing that I would do is make sure that you have all of the basic supplies. Whether you're ordering a professionally made banner or you're making one yourself with supplies that you get at a local craft store, all great options. Make sure that you have some kind of banner so that people know who they're seeing when they come to your table. It can just be like a stand-up one on your table. It can be one of those hanging vinyl ones. It can be a standy one on the floor. These are really technical terms. Standy one on the floor. So anyway, get a banner, get some signage, make sure that your name is out there and that you have stickers for your jars, like with your logo on them. Having a logo is super important, even if it's one that you hand draw yourself or you just write the name of your, you know, Instagram or the name of your Etsy shop if you have one, whatever it's going to be. It's important to have something to differentiate yours so when they get home with your slime, they know who it came from, you know? I know a lot of people start preparing for conventions, well, a lot of kids that I know, I don't really know any adults who do this, but a lot of kids that I know start preparing for conventions way in advance. I don't actually do that because I like my slimes to be really fresh when I get to the conventions. So the closer to the convention, I'm not talking about like 2 days before, but the closer to the convention you can make your slimes, the better, for multiple reasons. First, it's going to be fresher, and that's really exciting. But the other is that you will have a better chance of knowing how many you should make, and you won't overproduce, and you'll know how many that you should bring, and then you'll have less of a chance of having to bring things home with you. How do you figure out how many slimes to bring? This is a great question that we all grapple with every time we go to conventions. There is no exact science to this, of course. I've gone to conventions where I for sure brought too few. I've gone to conventions where I for sure brought too many. So I'm going to give you a basic equation that I use to figure out approximately how many to bring, but again, it's not exact. I usually take the amount of ticket holders, divide it by the amount of sellers in your category, VIP or whatever like that, and then do a little bit less than that, because we know that it's not actually going to be equal among everybody. That would be really lovely, but let's say there are 3,000 ticket holders and there are 30 sellers. Logically, everyone should sell 300 slimes if it was equal, but you know, that's not real. So if I was going somewhere where there were 3,000 ticket holders coming, and I was a VIP and there were if I was going to a thing where there were 3,000 ticket holders and 30 VIPs, I would probably bring 250 slimes. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I'm not a great mathematician, but so far it's mostly worked doing that. Yeah. Another thing that I would really suggest is utilize lists and spreadsheets. My friends make fun of me. Not really anymore, but like when I was younger, people used to be like, you make so many lists, whatever like that, but it's a really great way to keep organized. I have a list of things that I need to make, a list of things that I need to pack, you know, so on and so forth, and so that way you help stay organized. Like, you know, I'm about to go to Slimeland, Florida this coming weekend. I know that I need to pack my banner, I need to pack my price list, I need to pack all the slimes, I need to pack shopping bags, I need to pack care cards and business cards, I need to pack stickers, I need to pack bracelets, candy, you know, whatever like that. So make sure you have a list of everything that you want to bring with you, and have that prior to the week of course, in case there's anything that you have to go buy. One of the things that people forget all the time, myself included, in Chicago, I completely forgot shopping bags so that you can give your customer. I guess this is not really turning into a do's and don'ts, it's just kind of like a list of things to do. But I guess the don't would be, don't set your expectations too high. This sounds really mean, but a lot of kids get really excited when they're gonna go sell at their first convention, and they think that like all of a sudden they're gonna be Slime Yoda, and Ashley is wonderful, but none of us are Slime Yoda, you know what I mean? So be realistic in your expectations and just know that you're gonna do your very best, and whatever you do, it's great. And be happy with where you are is great. Another thing that's really important to do is enjoy yourself. And when you get there, enjoy your time. Don't let it get swallowed up by the work aspect of it. Slime conventions are so amazing because you're getting brought together with all of your friends that you've been talking to for so long. You're going to meet people that you admire, whose slimes that you have, whose slimes that you want, you know, who you just want to meet. You know, I mean, I've known Amanda the Slime Hive for 2 years, and I only just met her 1 month ago for the first time, and she ran up behind me and gave me a hug, and it was such a beautiful moment, you know. So enjoy those moments, relish in those moments, and don't let the business part of it take over too much, especially if you're a kid. You know, those of us who are adults, we have a lot of bills to pay and things like that, but if you're a kid, just live it a little, you know? So I want to talk to you a second about getting your slimes to the convention. There's a lot of back and forth about which method is best to get your slimes there, but I'm going to tell you some pros and cons of both, and then you can decide. I personally usually bring my slimes in suitcases, and the reason for that is that I feel like I have more control over them, and I'm not putting them in the hands of a shipping company, risking, I mean, obviously there's still a risk that they could get lost, you know, if your suitcase gets lost, but so far that, knock on wood, has not happened to me. The downside to suitcases is that you have a weight limit and you have to be really careful and blah 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 like that, but so far I've been pretty lucky, you know, in that regard. One thing that I will say about bringing your slimes on an airplane is when you have a very inflating slime, like probably this one, my Glinda butter slime, for example, doesn't get to come to conventions very often. And the reason that she is banished to stay at home most of the time is because when I bring her on an airplane, she inflates and she makes a mess in my suitcase. So if you know you have a really inflating slime, possibly underfill it slightly. I'm not saying under the fill line, but like I usually, you know, make my slimes flush with the top of a thing. Don't do that if it's a really inflating slime because it will make a mess. Padding is important. I usually, you know, use my clothes for padding and then make a layer of trash bags and then put my slimes inside them and then put more clothes on top to pad it and kind of go from there. Other people do it differently. Some people use bubble wrap. I try not to use bubble wrap if I don't have to because A, it's costly, B, it's wasteful, but you know, some people swear by it. I have only ever had, like, most of the time per convention at the most 2 things break, and sometimes none at all. So far my system's working. Most people that I know who have shipped their slimes have had issues one way or another. Some people, looking at you slime jellies, have had theirs get lost and never arrive. Some people, like Carly, have had random junk happen to theirs where like they got searched through and things were taken out and other things were, but it was so weird. You know, I've been there when Rachel opened a box before and things were broken. You know, Nat Slime Bun had a disaster where her stuff never arrived to Slime Dash. So things like that. So I would really put insurance on your package if you're mailing it, and just, I guess, if you want to take that risk. I haven't had things like that happen when I've shipped things, but I also tend to ship multiple small boxes rather than a large box, and I think that this is gonna sound terrible, but I think the reason that I've had better luck with that is that the mail carrying people don't want to lift those heavy boxes, and so they just get annoyed and like whatever. But because I'm sending the small boxes, like they don't even bother with them. They're just like, fine, whatever, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know if that's true. I don't have proof of it, but that's what I'm assuming. So yeah, these are some things that you should do and not do when you're going to be a seller at a convention. Reminder, this is something that I put in the etiquette video. If you are a seller and someone else is a seller, just because you and they are also sellers doesn't mean that they automatically have to trade with you. It doesn't mean that you should bombard them, you know. Oh, this is a really big one. If you are a first-time seller and like your favorite person is there at the same time as you at setup, of course you can say hello to them. Of course, you know, be cordial, and they want to know you and they want to talk to you. However, really important that you don't bombard people. I've had some conventions where I'm setting things up and other sellers are in the area because they're also setting things up, and they may finish setting up before me, and then they come over and they're like touching things even though I'm in the middle of setup. And I would say that's a big don't touch things that people have on their table, especially before they're done setting up. If it's setup time, you know, it's perfectly reasonable to go around and say like, hey, are you allowing sellers to purchase before we open? And most of the time the answer is yes, from everyone that I know. And the reason is we don't want you to have to leave your table once the thing is open. So we usually do allow that, but ask, that's fine. Don't just grab, and also maybe wait until they're done setting up. You know what I mean? So those are good, you know, just general tips. I can't really think of any more, you know, seller do's and don'ts off the top of my head, but that doesn't mean that we can't have a part 2 of this as well. If you are going to be selling at a slime convention and you have questions about how it works and you'd like me to do, maybe that's a really good way for us to do part 2 of this. I'll take questions for the next one and I'll answer them as the part 2 video. So go ahead and drop your question below, whatever the question may be, and I will not only answer them myself, but if maybe I'll poll my friends and get like group answers. I don't know how I feel about that, but yep, this is my seller tips, I guess. So enjoy, and good luck selling at your local convention. Oh, actually, that's something else to talk about. If you want to go to a convention that is really far away from you, you need to be really cognizant of the cost. Regardless of the size of your account, you should really like lay out the full lay out the full cost structure for you, whatever that may be. If you have to pay for your flight, if you have to pay for a train, gas, whatever, blah, 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 like that, you know, shipping is a cost, your supplies are a cost, the hotel, food, etc. So really be careful when you're choosing which convention to go to about the expenses, because sometimes the expenses outweigh the profit depending on a number of factors that include the size of our accounts, but also other factors. Sometimes a convention can be really great, but the time of year that it's happening at means that the flight is exorbitantly expensive, and that's not the event planner's fault. It's just what it is. You know, that happened with Slametopia too. The tickets to Seattle at that time were just so expensive that a lot of people couldn't go, and we still haven't figured out why, because it's not like it was a holiday or anything. It was very strange, but yeah. So I guess that's all for now. Ask your questions below, and the next one will be a Q&A. I think that's probably the best way to do it. See you later, guys.